Hi, Jason.
Good morning. How are
Morning.
you?
Thanks for coming in.
No problems at all. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us what you do?
Yeah, my name's Jason Elmer. I'm the Commander with Southern District with Tasmania Police. I'm also the Southern Regional Emergency Management Controller.
Jason, how long have you been involved in emergency management?
I've been with Tasmania Police for just over 31 years and in, leadership and management positions to do with emergency management for probably the best part of 20 years.
Okay.
Now, talk us through how the police prepare for extreme and catastrophic fire danger days.
So leading into a day of really high fire risk, there's a number of preparations that we will make leading into that. One is close liaison with the Tasmania Fire Service in relation to expectations and areas of high risk. We prepare our staff to make sure that we've got sufficient staff rostered on to respond to any initial event, but also to maintain a response, because we know that some of these bushfire incidents can be very protracted and we might need a large number of staff over days and sometimes weeks. So we make preparations around our rostering to ensure that we've got sufficient resources. We look at our community messaging and make sure that our media and comms team are working well with the TFS to push out any messaging that we need to do. We will engage in really high profile, high visibility patrols in high risk fire areas. One thing that we do in relation to prevention of fires, or we're trying to prevent fires, is we look at our intelligence holdings in relation to high risk offenders who may be suspects for previous deliberately lit fires, who might be in an area of high risk. And we might just pay them a little bit more closer attention during that period of high fire risk. We'll also proactively attend any fires that might be started by landowners or homeowners in contravention of days of total fire ban. So we will attend all of those incidents and we'll look at the situation and determine whether we need to prosecute people for disobeying days of total fire ban. So there's a whole range of activities that we will undertake leading into days of really high risk in relation to fire activity.
Jason, what role do police play when it comes to a bushfire event?
So we're a supporting agency to the Tasmania Fire Service. They are what we call the Response Management Authority, so it's the Tasmania Fire Service's role to obviously respond to any fire activity, and we're there to support them. Our main roles in a fire are to do with road closures and evacuations, if an evacuation is deemed necessary in a particular area. So we will liaise really closely with the TFS about evacuations and about road closures to make sure that we act quickly to close off a road where we don't want people, because there may be a risk to those people, or that it potentially will interfere with firefighting operations, particularly in rural areas where there might be low visibility due to smoke. And we want to close the road off to make sure that the TFS can go about their work safely. And the evacuations, again, we will work really closely where they identify that a particular area, a community, individual houses might be at risk, and there might need to be some advice to homeowners in relation to an evacuation. So again, we'll work with them, and then we would deploy resources to provide that information through to those communities or those homeowners around evacuation.
Now, we don't know the fire danger rating for this summer coming. However, any summer in Australia is risky. From a bushfire perspective, are police already planning, and what does planning involve?
So police, our planning into any fire season, that involves training of our staff or retraining of our staff. So we have an online training program for our staff that provides a range of information in the event that they're required to respond to a bushfire situation. So it's mandatory training that all of our operational police complete that training leading into a fire season. We test and we look at our emergency management operations. So in the event of a large-scale event, I would stand up an operations centre. So we just make sure that that is fully functional, and at very short notice we can stand that up. We have the right people in the right positions to come together really quickly to manage any police response. We make sure that our media and comms teams are ready to go with any messaging that we might need to put out to the public. We liaise really closely with the TFS, so we participate in pre-bushfire briefings about the summer ahead and where they see the high risk areas, and we make sure that we've got all of that information, and we would meet regularly with the TFS just to discuss arrangements and what the fire weather may be and the danger in the coming weeks. So again, from a police perspective, a lot of planning goes in to make sure that when something does occur, that we're not caught unaware, that we are prepared as much as we possibly can to be able to respond and assist the TFS in protecting the community.
Now, what should planning look like for the community?
In relation to the community, I guess the big emphasis and the TFS is the lead agency in relation to all the community messaging around preparedness and fire. And I would just reiterate the message of the TFS, and that is for homeowners to be prepared, to have a plan. During an incident, during a bushfire, is not the time to be sitting down to try and work out what your plan is and explain that to your family. Have a plan, have that written down, and make sure that all of the family members know what that plan is, particularly those community members who might live in bushfire prone areas. In relation to that plan and the fire, there's also the community bushfire protection plans that the TFS have on their website, and that they contain a whole lot of information relevant to local communities, including evacuation routes where applicable, nearby safer places. There's some information there, and it's really important that people differentiate between an evacuation centre and a nearby safer place, and that a nearby safer place is a place of last resort that someone could go to get away from the danger of a fire. So really familiarise yourself with those protection plans. Make sure you've got that plan, make sure that all the family knows about it, and be really prepared, and determine what you're going to do so that you can make a decision early. And the TFS again will talk a lot about, if you're going to leave early, because when people make late decisions, that's when people put themselves at risk, and that's when we can really run into some problems. So look, it's all about preparation. No different to police are preparing, the TFS are preparing, the community needs to prepare as well, because they've got a really important role to play in their own safety.
Are there any learnings from the 2019 Huon Valley bushfires that you would like people who live in bushfire-prone areas to take note of?
Importantly, listening to up-to-date messages, and those messages can change, because we know that a bushfire situation can change really rapidly depending on the weather and a whole other range of factors. So it's really important to have up-to-date information, and whether that be through the ABC radio, who provide regular updates. They're fantastic at conveying that information on behalf of the Tasmania Fire Service, the Tas Alert app or the Tas Alert website, and the Tas Alert website is the official source of information in relation to an emergency, and there is advice, and that is that they're updated regularly. The Tasmania Police website also has a community alerts page as well that provides that up-to-date information. So really listening to up-to-date information, and when you're making decisions around evacuation, etc., to make those decisions really early and make sure you look after the safety of yourself and your family.
Unsurprisingly, people who have had to evacuate from their homes want to get back to their homes as soon as possible after the fire front has passed. How soon after the fire front has passed is it that residents are allowed to return?
A really difficult question to answer, and I have worked on a few bushfires over the years. Denali bushfires were pretty significant, and we had some road closures in place for pretty significant periods following the Denali fires. And clearly there is a lot of angst when people can't get back into their homes, and whether that be to go back and check whether their home has been damaged by fire, or they simply want to get back home to resume their life, I guess. And there's a whole range of factors that are around the decision to open up an area. We will prioritise allowing people to get back to their property, but we won't compromise their safety or the safety of emergency workers when we're making those decisions. So road access is clearly a big issue. We need to ensure that once a bushfire has gone through, that there aren't trees and power poles, etc., that are still burning, that ours days after a fire may come down and may come down and block a road, or again risk the safety of the community. So if you're looking at a bushfire, and Denali was a classic example, a large portion of highway down through the Tasman Peninsula was affected. That took a number of days for that to be all safely checked, because essentially we had people going from tree to tree. And if you look at all the trees that line the road down there, that was a really big process. So safety is the number one priority, but getting people back through, and we have various levels of road closures. So we can close roads full stop, that it's too dangerous for anyone to be in there, or we might say emergency services and essential services vehicles only, or we might open it up for those vehicles and local residents only, and we'll have roadblocks in place where we're checking ID to make sure that only the local residents are going into those areas. So we'll do that as quickly as we can, but as I said at the beginning, we won't compromise the safety of anyone. So we just need to know that it's safe for those people to travel in there, that the threat of the fire is gone, that we're not going to send back people into an area where the wind changes, the fire comes back, and all of a sudden we've sent people into an area that they're now at risk again. So we look at all those factors, but the community can rest assured we know how much they want to get back home, and we'll get them back there as soon as it's safe to do so.
One of the most common questions that we hear from residents in fire-prone areas is, what are the evacuation routes that they should be aware of? What advice do you have for community members who have concerns about evacuating during a fire?
Yeah, so I mentioned the TFS community bushfire protection plans, and they have some information around evacuation routes. But it's really important to know that clearly in any bushfire situation they're a really dynamic, fast-moving situation. So I can't sit here and say, if you live in this particular area, this is your evacuation route, because that might change, and that the fire might be actually burning across that road. So that evacuation route is dangerous and of no use. So we'll put information out around evacuation routes, and normally we would get some notice that a fire is coming towards a certain area, and based on a lot of consultation with the TFS and perhaps even the Bureau of Meteorology, we will then come out and say, this is your safest exit, but that may change. And that is, again, that comes back to that message of keeping up to date with information, listening to the latest warnings and the latest information that's put out. So we can't say prior to a fire, this is your 100% safe access out of a particular area, because we don't know where the fire is going to be. We don't know which way the wind's going to be blowing. We don't know about the fire behaviour and what's going to occur, and there are experts in that field that will provide us with that advice, so we can get advice out to people as quickly as we possibly can to say, this is where you need to leave to now. But there might come a point in time where even that evacuation route, it is no longer safe to travel. And again, back to that message, if you're going to leave early, so that maybe the main street is the best way out, but there might come a point in time where you need to sit tight.